guys know I got the glass unicorn. All right, so I get to train on referrals today. This is one of my favorite trainings because once I unlocked the referral game, it was like a completely new level because I love meeting people, but I just don't like the act of having to go out and find, sales, right? Like Samir said, I don't want to be in sales my whole life, but I will do it because I love what we do in general and it's for a great cause. But if I can train, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of me, why not, right? To do more. And plus, when you recruit and you train more people, then you can help more people. So it's all a win-win. So I call this the money trail because when you get a referral, there's a whole trail that you're, building. That's all it is, right? Somebody refers you to somebody who refers you to somebody who refers you to somebody. And I got maybe I was in charge of 8 transactions. I was involved with 8 transactions this week. And more than half of them came from referrals. So it was pretty cool because all I was doing was calling current clients for the most part and following up to make sure that their information was current and their address was still current, their phone number, email was still current. If there's any changes they need to make, beneficiary changes, new house, new spouse, and they're, we're having a great conversation. And literally, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was because I was just quick with the conversation, or maybe they just don't get customer service that well anymore these days. Companies just sell you and leave you, right? They're so used to that now, but when they get a call and follow up, somebody follows up, they're like, holy crap, like this is a great company, right? This is a great representation of Primerica. And so immediately they were like, oh yeah, I forgot. I was supposed to call you guys somehow. I didn't have your number. My mom needs insurance. My dad needs insurance. My brother needs insurance. And I'm like, that's cool, right? Marion is sitting here listening to me. Sheila's sitting here listening to me. And literally I called and I walked into a child rider increase because the lady was just like, yeah, we have this new baby, etc. So people's life changes, but if you don't follow up, there's no fortune to be had, right? Or to be earned. So when people refer you, it's for the same reason why people don't refer you. You either have credibility or you don't have credibility. And credibility can be a lot of different things. These are not all of the reasons, but this is what came to mind. Professionalism, what Samir came up with, how you walk, how you talk, how you dress. And sometimes you do have to match that person. Most of the time, you do have to match that person's energy. If they don't talk as fast, you don't want to talk as fast, right? You want to slow it down. If they talk faster and they're really like an A-type personality, you want to get through the presentation as quick as possible. Your efficiency, your clarity in presenting, your follow-up process, customer service, your competence, right? If you don't know how to answer all the questions, that's okay, but that means you still need your trainer at some point and call them to ask a question, right? Hannah was on an appointment the other day and she called me during her appointment to answer a question, but she was still able to get the answer for the client, right? Closing a knowledge gap for the client. I'll never forget either Samir, Shaq, whoever was in front of the room. They said, if you just know, you don't have to know everything, but if you just know one more thing that the client knows, you have just closed a value gap, right? Or a knowledge gap. And then of course your relationship is what brings the appointment in there, or the recruit's relationship. So once I learned how to earn referrals, not get referrals, but earn it, then I can now teach the team how to do it, right? Because you can't teach what you don't know, you can't give what you don't have. And that's sometimes if you're, one of the biggest things in our company is that if you don't believe what you're doing enough to even be your own client, you're definitely not getting a referral because you're not getting the client in the first place. And they're not going to be a long-term client either. So the person that gets the best business is the one that's their own client, by the way, right? You don't have to be, but if you want success and people to believe you, you got to believe in your own services. So the more credible the trainee is, the less you have to explain to the client and the more it's again a warm referral. So let's talk about when to ask for the referrals before we get into the wording. So you want to ask right before you get the quotes. That's where I find it's the best time, because whether I'm on a personal appointment or I'm training a trainee like Kita, right? While you're doing the quoting, the client has to be thinking about something, but you don't want it to be dead silent where they're thinking about anything in the world, right? Because silence is deadly sometimes. Sometimes they can think themselves out of doing business with you because they're just having buyer's remorse already. So you want to make sure that you kind of keep them busy thinking about things that are productive, right? So if I'm about to give quotes, I'll say, okay, great. So I'm going to crunch some numbers for you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, and I go into these 3 questions. because I'm about to give Kita the floor to ask for the referrals while I'm doing the quoting. That's going to take me at least 3 minutes. So in those 3 minutes, Kita can get 5 to 10 referrals if she's efficient with it, right? So, Jan, so $5,200, great. If I find you a plan that fits within $5,200 a month, that would make you feel comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna crunch some numbers for you. So I go through the medical questions, birthday, yada yada, height and weight. So I'm gonna crunch some numbers for you. But did you feel comfortable with the way that we presented ourselves?
Yes.
Okay, great. Did we answer all your questions regardless of whether or not you asked them?
Yes.
Okay, great. And do we provide you any value today that you feel other families or people just need to hear about?
Absolutely.
Great. So that's called yes momentum. You're building what we call yes momentum, right? Yes momentum, little yeses lead to the big yes, and the big yes is the routing and account number, right? So going next here, when I'm going into asking, right? The client's gonna be like, okay, yes, 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 cool. Now I know that we have earned the referral before we even got it. Because how are you gonna tell me yes, 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 right? And then you can't think of anybody. Because during the presentation, I already threw seeds, by the way, and I didn't include that in this presentation, but there's some parts in the presentation, well, I'll include seeds. So the first page where the statistics are, you guys know what that page is, right? The financial challenges out there. At the bottom of the page, the statistic is, more than 25% or more than 40% have less than $25,000 in savings for retirement. Mr. and Mrs. Client, that may not be you, but you probably know people like that, don't you? You already said you know people. So now you can't tell me you don't know people. The only way that I'm not going to get the referral is if I ask the wrong way, which we'll get to. So we provide any value to you today that you feel other families need to know about? She says yes. So I'm asking because my biggest responsibility is to help Kita have other places to go. We normally ask for 5 to 10 introductions to other families like yourself who you feel just deserve to hear the same information or education. Now, even if you give Kita the name and number, we want you to speak to them first. If they call you back and say, I don't want to talk to any 4'11" Asian lady, we'll just cross them off, no problem, and not reach out. But if they're open to a 2-minute phone call, we'll introduce ourselves. If they are open to meeting, then we'll set up a time to meet. If they aren't interested, we'll just say, okay, thank you for your time. We promise never to embarrass you, Jan, or hurt your credibility, because if we did that, you would never introduce Kita to anyone else, right?
Right.
Right. So we'll treat them the same way we treated you. Fair?
Yes.
Right. So I'm going to pass the floor to Kita, who's going to ask, who do you know that deserves to hear the same information? And now I transition on the trainer side to doing the quotes. Right. I stop screen sharing and I work on the numbers and I put together a document, a Google Doc, while Kita's asking these questions. So go ahead, Kita, role play with me. We'll pretend Jam's the client. So Jam just,
Who do you know who deserves to hear this education?
My sister,
All right, what's her name?
Michelle.
Okay. And is she married, engaged, or single?
She's married.
Does she have any kids?
Yes,
Or how
3.
many? Sorry. What's their number?
555. 555.
All right, thank you. Who else would deserve to hear this?
okay. And who else would deserve to hear this? Great job, Kita. Give it up for Kita. Psychologically, I never asked, do you know anyone? Because nobody knows anybody. Okay, nobody knows anyone. No one knows anyone. Stop asking that question. Stop asking that question. Just stop asking. Do you know anyone? Is a killer. You are committing literally suicide in business if you ask, do you know anyone? How do they know? They're not sitting around asking people their finances. They don't know anybody, but they do know. Who do you know that deserves to hear financial education? Because you can't tell me your brother, sister, cousin doesn't deserve to hear it. It always boils down to, I don't want them to be bothered. They already have something in place. So I'm going to get to the nitty gritty of that, but I'm going to get to it when I get to it. Who do you know who deserves to hear the education? Who, what, where, when, all the open-end questions. There's no way you can say no. There's only an answer to that question, an open-end answer, right? And who else would deserve to hear this? And who else? And who else? And who else? So you hear Kita, right? The way she's trained and the way I was also training myself, when you ask what's their number, what I find is that trainees or anybody who's asking this for the first time, as soon as they get to what's their number, hey, is it okay if I get their number? No, stop asking it that way. You're killing yourself. Just follow the questions. Just follow the question. Just follow the question. It's funny how when I send it to trainees And then they get into it, and we've already went through the whole thing, and then they're like, is it okay if I get, did that say that? It doesn't say that. Just read it, right? Just read it. All you have to do is just read it. And I send it to them. They have the questions in front of them, right? Now, the first time people will always mess up. But after we go through it, who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? And how easy it is for people to think about it now versus do you know anyone? Right? As soon as you ever ask in the beginning, right? Do you know anyone? How immediately to say nobody?
Immediately.
Like all the time, right? So stop asking, do you know? Ask who do you know? That's the biggest thing I can say to you guys here, okay? And once Kita is done, once the client is done and they say, Rod, that's all I can think of. I think that's all I have for you, right? Kita, what do you say?
Let's try to think of one more person.
Let's just think of one more person. And you get one more person. You never know who that one person could be. You know, there's many times where that one person was the next client because the first three were not, didn't close. You just never know, right? And so if they have a hard time thinking, these are some questions you can ask. And you can come up with your own questions, but I just kind of threw some out there. Who do you know that just lost a job, right? Referral. Who do you know who maybe had just had a baby? Who do you know that just switched jobs? Who do you know that could use extra income? Who do you know who would like to pay off their debt? Who do you know that feels stuck because of the pandemic? Who do you know is unhappy with their career? Just a couple of questions to help them navigate through their thought process if they're having trouble, right? But sometimes people would just think, oh, no, you need to talk to my brother. Oh, and they'll give you all the information up front and you don't even have to ask all the questions, right? But you want to ask, who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? Okay. Thank you so much, Jan. Please let these individuals know how to expect a call from us in the next day or so. I don't want you to feel like you are doing our work, so you don't have to explain much, except for that this is about great financial education you felt they deserve to hear. Is that easy for you? Awesome. Because I find that now people are not sending out the text messages. And if I'm back-to-back in appointments, unfortunately, I'm not going to have the time to sit there and talk to them about it. But if you do, you should take it, right? And so, yeah. Let's talk about booking the referral. Good, guys, so far?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So when I call a referral, I use a more soft voice because people are so used to sales calls and scammers calling and spam calls. And my number ends in 8800, so it could be an office call or a spam call, right? And if somebody calls me, I pretend I'm Russian. I speak, Russian if they start trying to fool with my phone. So I know they would do that to me, right? It's funny because I had a referral. I called him, and I knew him too. It was a warm market, and I knew him from school, and he got referred to me. So it's not like he doesn't know me, but he didn't even let me get a hello out. He didn't even know who it was, right? And I was like, hello. He's like, click. I was like, I texted him. I was like, hey, Span, it's me, Jen. He's like, what? That's so random. I'm like, I know. I'm doing a business call with you. Can you pick up and call me back, please? Yeah, but yeah, so use a friendly voice. So ring. Hi, good afternoon. May I speak to Jimmy, please?
This is she.
Hi, we haven't had the chance to meet yet. We actually don't know each other, but we have a mutual friend in Rod and Tony. Did they tell you that we'd be reaching out or mention my name to you, Jennifer?
Oh, yeah, Rod, yeah.
Okay, awesome. She says no, I'll get to that in a second. Great. So I hope we're gonna find. So I can actually speak briefly with you if you're busy. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay, I didn't put that in there, Scott, but write that down. That's a really good way to get them to stay on the phone. So if you're busy, I can be very brief with the reason I'm calling. If you're busy, I can be very brief with the reason I'm calling. Is that okay? Okay. Awesome. So I helped run a financial brokerage at Tyson's Corner and sat down with Tony and Rod and shared some financial concepts that really changed the way they were handling their finances. During the course of us discussing business, I asked if they knew anyone who was responsible like them, who deserved to hear the same information, and they mentioned you because you also have 2 kids and a husband too, right?
Yes.
Awesome. So great. What we specialize in is debt elimination, saving for your future, your children's future, as well as life insurance options. Which one of those is most concerning or interesting for you to learn about?
All of them.
Great. A lot of the families I speak to say the same thing. I told Tony and Rod that we would never obligate you to do anything. However, in this situation, we normally try to set up a 30 to 45-minute video call just so you can get to know me and what we do. And if you like us enough, and hopefully you do, to welcome us back for a second meeting, then we can bring back hard numbers. And we'll never charge for our time. Instead, we just ask that you introduce us to other families like yourself, just like Rod and Tony thought about you. Is that fair?
Yes,
Awesome. So when are you typically off these days, on the weeknights or weekends?
weeknights.
Okay, so I asked when you typically off because sometimes the client will refer you to somebody, and even if they told you they were, they may have just lost their job, and now I'm going to be stuck doing an appointment where there's no fish in the sea to go fishing for, right? I want to make sure that I'm qualifying without directly qualifying it, if that makes sense, right? So if they're not working, I'll book them for the opportunity meeting, and I'll send them the client video up front, and they'll just know what we do, and then they'll see the opportunity, and they're looking for work. So, but if they say they're off weeknights, what did you say? Weeknights? Okay, Monday or Tuesday. What's better for you?
Tuesday.
6 or 8?
8.
8? Okay, awesome. I'm going to send you a client appointment email, and then you'll get a text message or email to remind you in advance as well about it. But my name is Jennifer, and thank you for your time. I'll see you then, okay? Awesome. And that's referrals. Now, if we go back here and I say, did Tony and Rod tell you I'll be reaching out to you at all, Jam? And she says no. And I'll be like, oh, as she was supposed to, I apologize. Would you like to speak to them first, or would you like me to just briefly explain what they wanted me to share with you?
That's fine.
Okay, awesome. And then I'll go through it. And then they'll book. Sometimes, very few times, they'll be like, well, let me talk to Rod and Tony first, right? Well, the thing is, before I call the referral now, I actually follow up with my client first. And I call the client. I'll say, I'll find any reason to call the client. Then I'll say, by the way, did you give a heads up to Jim and Lee that I would be reaching out? Okay, great. Just want to let you know I'm going to be calling her in a few seconds. So I just wanted to give you a heads up and just find out that you talked to her. Can you just let her know in advance?
Do you ever have like a referral? I know you do, but do you ever have a referral chain where you get a referral and then the referral gives you a referral and the referral gives you a referral? Like, does it get easier to get referrals because they were a referral?
Yes. They expect to give referrals to you once you meet them as a referral. So if I'm training Hannah and this is her first training appointment, the first time you try to get referrals is always going to be the most challenging because one, the trainee is learning, right? Then this is not a referral in a sense where I was ready to do business. I was just trying to help Hannah with training. So when you start meeting people that meet you to do business with you, and you've already put it in the front end that this is how I met you and this is how I do business, they will already expect to refer you to people. So I met with a lady, Maria, and I'm actually meeting her husband today since he was hiding in the background, not trying to talk to me at first. And he was so sure that his insurance he was the owner, but then he checked his policy at the job and now he's like, shoot, I was wrong, right? But anyway, so my old neighbor, Marquise, he is a full client, him and his wife. And so each time I go see them for their baby showers and whatnot, baby birthdays, and celebrate with them, they'll always introduce me to people. And one of them they introduced me to was a cousin of hers. He was really happy, came back, and Marquise got some good feedback, right? So Marquise says, hey, sis, I just got another client for you. I said, who? It's my coworker. She needs help with her 401k. And she had information on life insurance, and I was telling her it wasn't good to depend on the job because I educated him. So I called Maria, and I didn't have to go through the whole script. I said, hey, this is Marquise's friend and advisor. She goes, oh my God, yes, I was waiting for your call. I'm sorry I didn't call you back. I didn't know your number, but thank you for calling me. I'd love to meet with you. I was like, great, when do you want to meet? We set the appointment. She said her husband didn't want to sit in. I said, just let him sit in and just listen at least, right? And yes, she closed, and then her husband immediately said, give her my number. And then when I called her two best friends, they said, yeah, Maria told us about you. We're ready to meet. So I didn't have to go through the script. This is just literally the first layer or second layer.
Yeah.
And that's it. Anybody have questions?